This computer. Awesome. Okay, we are live. Thank you so much, Kyler, for chatting with me today. I'm so excited. We're going to dive into healing your body through nourishment. I feel like that's a great little title to kind of encompass everything that we'll discuss. But first and foremost, I would love if you could just share a little bit about, your health journey. I know you've been through a health journey and what ultimately led you into this work.
Yeah, so I would say it started pretty much in high school. I didn't know a ton about nutrition, but I was pretty active and I was on the cross country and track team and I ran a lot but I didn't know a ton about nutrition, and I just remember one of my teachers saying that she was dealing with anxiety and she told us she was going to try and cut out gluten. And I just remember being so confused about that because I wasn't sure how gluten had anything to do with anxiety. I didn't know how food had anything to do with anxiety. Um, but that kind of opened up my mind to think of food in a new way in the very beginning stages of, this. And then fast forward to about a year later, one of my friends was diagnosed with an autoimmune disease. And that was like 10 years ago and wasn't as common as it is now. And we really didn't know what that meant. And so she asked if I would research with her and find her kind of a plan nutrition wise that she could keep up that would help this autoimmune disease and help her heal. And so I offered, and we kind of found a plan that may work for her. And she didn't really know how she was going to do it, so I volunteered to do it with her. And I ended up learning so much just about how how good it can make you feel, and also just how much better I was able to run just because of I fueling my body in a new way that I hadn't really known to try before. So I would say that was pretty much the beginning phase. Little did I know those little nutrition tools were adding to my toolkit because about 3 years ago, I was diagnosed with a degenerative bone disease out of the blue. I was lifting weights a lot and one morning just kind of woke up and had lost my grip strength, and my wrist was really bothering me. So I went to go see an orthopedic surgeon, and he basically told me they were going to need to fuse my wrist, and that I would no longer be able to lift weights again. And at the time, I was studying to become a personal trainer, so that wasn't really good news, but I decided not to listen, thankfully.
Wow.
And ended up getting a bone graft in my wrist, and they revascularized my wrist. I found another doctor that was able to do that, and that was kind of the starting point to all of my what I really found. Where I found my passion for nutrition is in that healing journey of Kienbach's disease.
That is so scary, honestly. I can't believe it. Did you have like a little voice in your head being like, there's got to be another way because of your prior experience doing all that research on autoimmune stuff? You think
For
that's what it
sure.
was?
Yes. Like I had learned so much about the body and how strong and capable it is. I'm like, I know if I just tell myself I can get through this, oh, I'm getting through it. And the fact that
Wow.
they told me I'd never lift weights again was just more fuel on
Yeah.
my fire to be like, oh, I will. You can say it again.
Yeah, absolutely. You're like, that's a red flag that you're just gonna dismiss it like that, first of all. And
Yeah.
then also motivation, because you're just like, what in the world?
Yeah. And
That
I was 20. Like when you have children, like you won't be able to pick them up. And I'm like, oh, yes, I will. I mean, and I was 20 years old. So,
that's
yes.
crazy, honestly. Wow. That's amazing. And if you don't follow Kyler, obviously you can see today she's alive and well, lifting
I was well.
plenty of weights all the
Yeah.
time, which I mean, I'm sure we will get back more into that in your journey, but you also incorporate a lot of traditional Chinese medicine principles into how you approach nutrition. And for someone who's never heard of that before, even myself, like I'm not super familiar, but I've kind of like over the years, like I've learned more, but it's always by accident. It's like I hear about, I'll give you one example that's kind of random, like warm foods and and cold plunging and ice bath. The reason I bring these two things up is because I was into cold exposure and doing that stuff, not so much anymore, but in the last few years. And doing more research about it and just also hearing different opinions, I learned, according to traditional Chinese medicine, you would never immerse your whole body, especially a woman, into cold water. You wouldn't even drink cold water, or eat cold foods, let alone put your whole entire body into an ice box. And I'm just like, what? So that's just like one example of a very specific, thing that again, it's like all these little connections where I'm like, maybe there is something to this. So I'm curious for someone who's never even heard of this before, like what are some big things that traditional Chinese medicine teaches us about food and healing, or how you even kind of learned about this?
Yes. Okay. Well, one thing I love about Chinese medicine is it sees the body as a whole system. So instead
Mhm.
of saying, okay, you have anxiety, your nervous system or your brain and your chemical, balance is not there, we look at the body as a system and we see how these organs connect.
Yeah.
And they do connect, is the real truth. In Chinese medicine, we believe that digestion is the root of health. So if your digestion is good, a lot of other things will be good. We also prioritize the blood, especially in women's health and building up the blood. The blood has a huge impact on fertility and just the menstrual cycle in general. But instead of saying, okay, let's build up the blood, here's like a blood transfusion or, an iron supplement, we say, okay, what foods will build the blood? We have like liver and we have red meat. And what's cool about Chinese medicine is the colors also coordinate to the two different parts of the body. So we see a lot of red foods correlate to or correspond to the heart. And a lot of times, building up that blood, you're going to find red foods there.
Cool.
So I like that part of Chinese medicine. I also think it's just so amazing that we coordinate different organ systems with the seasons. And it's like, okay, it's winter. Why do I want warm foods? Well, it's because our body mimics our external environment. So if you're living somewhere cold where like here it's 30 degrees. Well, last night I was so cold. I'm like, I'm going to make something really warm because we've got to warm up and promote the circulation in our body. And so in Chinese medicine, it's a lot about seeing the body as a system and not as much as um, calories or macros or fuel. It's food is seen more as information, which I think is awesome and different kind of mindset.
Yeah, I'm pursuing a functional nutrition certification right now and got really into functional medicine a few years ago. And it is similar in that, instead of looking at these symptoms in isolation, it's like, how is all the organ systems, how are the organ systems all connected? How are these symptoms all connected to one another? What is the root cause? How do we heal? So I feel like there's some similarities there, but ancient wisdom, it's just funny how that stuff gets like just pushed to the side, and dismissed.
Yes, it's very, very interesting, but it's also been around for so long that you would think, it would make us want to know more about it.
Yeah, I'm definitely curious, and you've inspired that. So thank you for sharing like your learnings. Um, I I know that's something that you probably see. I also see with my clients constantly, and also have worked on myself is stabilizing blood sugar. Or with clients, you've seen probably blood sugar issues. And I've learned a lot on how that impacts not only hormones, but cravings, energy, anxiety, as somebody who struggles with nervous system regulation and anxiety, all of it. But, what have you learned? I know that you were a continuous glucose monitor at one point and did your own little experiment because everyone's response to different foods are slightly different. I also know that it's not like universal. You eat these things and it's going to mean your blood sugar is stable. So there's some very individual variations, but I'm curious like what you've learned about balancing blood sugar through nourishment that people overlook.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, I've learned so much. It's really interesting too because when I was first getting into this world, I wore one just for fun.
Yeah.
And even my data going back 3 years ago is so different from now. Like fast forward or go back to 3 years ago, I didn't have much muscle mass. I didn't, lift really. And I didn't really care about protein. I didn't even know what that was. Like really. Like what foods were highest in protein. But it's so interesting to look back because now that I do have more muscle mass, that muscle is like a vacuum for sugar. Anytime, I can now eat maybe something a little sugary and it's honestly like probably goes straight to my muscle. I would say building muscle is a huge one. Also eating earlier in the day, eating breakfast and eating a very high protein meal first thing in the morning, will give your blood sugar a chance to kind of, well, you're more insulin sensitive in the morning. So you're able to use that sugar best in the morning when the sun is coming up. And then we slowly become more insulin resistant as the sun goes down. So I would say eating a very protein heavy breakfast and just if that seems hard, start with just eating breakfast. Um, that's a huge thing. I would say those are my main two, and then just like sleeping enough.
Yeah.
Really making sure that you're prioritizing sleep. Your body is naturally more insulin resistant when you don't get enough sleep or you're more stressed. So,
So crazy. Yeah,
yeah.
eating breakfast, like I really struggle with that. I mean, I do it. I force myself to do it, but I do struggle because I don't feel hungry when I wake up.
Mhm.
But just having a couple hard-boiled eggs, and just a little something, or some cottage cheese, like something in your system within the first hour or so feels grounding. It's almost like it just took away the stress in a way.
Yeah.
Like it took the edge off. It felt very noticeable, the difference for me. Again, not like forcing a huge meal, like maybe like I would work out or walk and then eat a bigger meal, a little bit later to give some time, but just something that's protein, fat heavy. I felt it and it's just wild. It just goes to show like what your teacher said back in the day, like I'm gonna look at my nutrition when it
Yeah.
comes to my anxiety. Like I just never I know the connection with like food and body, but I was very surprised at how
Yeah.
that feels.
And it's crazy when you have that data. Like, I would go, okay, my stomach is growling. Well, let's see what the glucose monitor says. And almost always, when I felt that, like, okay, I'm really hungry,
Hmm.
my glucose was low. So
Yeah.
it makes sense, as into like our body's just signaling, like, okay, we need like a little bit of sugar or something. Or even, I went and got a hot chocolate and I was like, I am just going to enjoy this. And.
Yeah.
And I was on my way home. By the time I got home, as I was drinking my hot chocolate, this may sound like a exaggeration, but I was so anxious and shaky. I pulled up the glucose monitor. I was just like coming all the way down. And I was like, okay, this makes sense. I was like, I feel anxious and it's hard because you do need to have a balance.
Yeah.
You
You don't
know?
want to never,
Yeah,
yeah.
like you can't. that's just not sustainable.
Yeah.
But just knowing and seeing that data and saying, okay, why didn't I eat, a piece of whatever, piece of protein or something before I had the hot chocolate? Because it would have helped.
It would have helped, right? I know. I think it's just empowering to have that data because then you're just like, okay, because there's might be slight variations, like you said, someone with more muscle mass might have better response than obviously someone with less, but you will at least know your own personal trends. And
Yeah.
you have anxiety like that could be triggering, and you're like, I don't want to feel like that. So now you have that, lodged in your brain.
Mhm.
Did you find that the classic, fiber and like, well, I shouldn't say the classic routine of like or the order you eat your food in, because
Huh.
but I guess I'm asking more, did you find that eating more fiber in each meal also kept you more stable?
Oh, 100%.
Okay.
Yeah.
It wasn't really just the protein and the fat, it was also the fiber.
Yeah, and that slows the absorption of glucose anyway. So, you take maybe a pizza with cauliflower crust and that's going to slow down your absorption of that sugar rather than just maybe having a piece of regular pizza made out of, regular flour and stuff
Yeah.
on crust. But I always do something and I try is I make like a pre-fiber dinner snack. A
Mm-hmm.
lot of times in our house, we have rice or pasta or something carby
Mm-hmm.
in our dinner. And I'm like, okay, we are going to have something to kind of regulate glucose before we eat dinner. Also,
Mm-hmm.
like help our appetite come along. But what's so interesting is like when you go to restaurants, they serve you chips, like at a Mexican restaurant, or they serve you bread.
Yep.
And that gets your appetite going, but it also gets your blood sugar going. And so you end up eating more.
Yep.
And so it's very strategic on their end. It's like they
Yeah.
know what they're doing. But
Yeah.
imagine if you had maybe a high fiber salad before you start, you'll notice, okay, wait, I ate half the salad before dinner and like I can't finish dinner.
Yeah.
So it just the structure and the order of food you eat, especially
Mm-hmm.
the first thing you eat, really dictates how much you eat, if you're going to eat later at night, and how you're going to sleep if we're talking about dinner.
100%. Yeah, like snacking on veggies. I I just keep some quick veggies always on hand because otherwise, when I'm cooking dinner, I always tell my clients this, I'll face plant into a bag of chips. Like when you're
Yeah.
hungry cooking dinner, it's like the chips are right here. So if there's not veggies, like easy, it's like two very different paths that you can go on. And I love chips, but yeah, I almost feel so full. I don't even have an appetite for dinner. Once I've like munched on or sorry, not chips, veggies and salsa or veggies and tzatziki or something like that. You
Yeah.
feel so full from that.
Uh-huh.
So that's a great little hack I think that everyone can take away is like make yourself a little something or a fibrous salad first instead of the bread first.
Yeah. Love
I
it.
I know that you make your own bone broth and you even have you do still have a subscription for
Yeah.
Nashville locals,
Yeah.
which is amazing. I have a lot of Nashville clients and friends and all of that. I am curious what made bone broth such a staple in your healing journey and like why you recommend it so strongly.
Yeah. I will say, bone broth is like a superfood in Chinese medicine. If you look back years and years ago, when you killed an animal, your tribe ate it nose to tail. So they had to get creative with the bones, and that kind of turned into simmering them over long periods of time to extract the nutrients out of these bones and get the collagen. And I study a lot of how people ate in the past. And when I was diving into my healing journey with the Kienbock's disease, I knew I needed to support my joints and my bones and get as much protein in as possible. And
Mhm.
so and also just managing inflammation. And so I would go to the store and buy bone broth that would sit on the shelf for who knows how long. and
Yeah,
you pick it up and it would just look like water.
it's just water.
Yeah. And I'm like, okay, how's this sitting out? So I was like, you know what? I am going to make my own bone broth. I did not know what I was doing. I would go to the store and get chicken wings and make bone broth out of chicken.
That's so funny.
Full success. And how I make it now, I do not use chicken wings. But um yeah, I really started just daily, like incorporating that daily into my eating, and that has helped so much just in terms of, like I said, adding in protein and managing inflammation and supporting your bones and your gut health. And yeah, word got out that I was making my own, and it's kind of just been a thing that has grown, which is exciting.
Well,
And yeah,
I
that's where we are.
if anyone in Nashville watches this and wants to get a hold of you, can they just DM you, or what's the best way to inquire about bone broth?
Yeah, you can DM me, or in the link in my bio, there's like a sign up sheet.
Okay.
It'll say Liquid Gold subscription, Nashville locals only, and you can fill out your information.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, it's super exciting. I have to kind of limit people on the subscription just because it is kind of labor intensive. And it can quickly become a full-time job. So,
You're
but
like,
yeah,
I
keep it
wanna keep, you're like, this needs to be a side thing, not the main thing. That's amazing. So you just kind of like you experimented until you found like your recipe, so to speak.
yeah, it's become it's come a long ways. But I finally, yeah, I'm at a point where I'm like, this is like
Really good.
known horn, but I'm like, this is one of the best you can find.
It looks really, really good. I love that. Well, I want to be respectful of your time today. I appreciate you so much for sharing all this, but I would love to know if you don't mind answering or just sharing, like, in the beginning, you talked about your health journey, and that must have been a very scary diagnosis to get. And also just to have a doctor be so just like adamant that, by the way, you can't do XYZ. And so to see, you heal yourself, it sounds like. What have the last 12 months even like looked like in terms of what your health is, your confidence in being able to, heal and nourish yourself? I would
Mhm.
just love to know, what you've like learned most recently since you're clearly lifting weights.
Yeah. Um, well, I would say number one is a lot of our health depends on too how we feel about ourselves. And
Mhm.
if I would have sat there and been like, he's right, like I'm never gonna do anything again, then I wouldn't have been doing anything again. I wouldn't have been lifting weights. But I was like, no, like that is not what I stand for. And just because maybe he was a doctor and he has experience and stuff, he doesn't. I was like, I am going to be my own doctor. And my pharmacy is in my kitchen. And I love to cook and make things that support my body and healing. And I think a main thing is like, we see a lot of, oh, we have rules and restrictions and challenges and all of these things. But it's like, I just focus so much on building health so that when your health is put in jeopardy, you have all the things that you need and you're in a healthy state before that happens where you have to get healthy. Just be healthy from the start so that if or when something does happen, you're good to go. You've got, your nutrient stores are up, you've got muscle mass, you're healthy, your inflammation is low. And I think that's the biggest thing is like, you don't need a challenge. You don't need restrictions or rules or cutting out sugar. Like, have fun and be able to celebrate and go out with your friends and do things you love. But just know, like, when you come home, your kitchen is your pharmacy, and make meals that will support you and build up your health before you have to, rely on your health to support you.
I love that. You have an amazing attitude and philosophy.
I don't know if I answered the last 12 months. I was just cooking nonstop.
No, you're like, I'm just cooking. That's my solution. I love it though. Like, I'm really so happy for you. And I'm just like, it's been amazing to watch your journey and really inspiring. And yeah, I wish, at your age, I figured out all of this stuff, sooner. So I just think like that's why I love talking to other people who are on their own journeys and to just share because the sooner that you can become your own like guru on your own body and empower yourself with confidence that with taking care of yourself you can change your whole life just the better so I just want to get that message out and I appreciate you for being so vulnerable and sharing so much with all of us.
Uh, yeah, of course. I'm so happy to do this. And, you never know how your story can touch others and inspire others or the doctors that you can inspire. I mean, this is crazy, but I saw that doctor who told me I'd never lift weights again in my rearview mirror in Nashville, and I followed him to his house. And I pulled in his driveway, and he was like, "Can I help you?" And I was like, "I just got down and did 10."
No, you did.
So I told him, I'm like, next time you tell a 20-year-old that when they are diagnosed with Kienbach's disease that they will not recover, you think about me and give them my card. So you never know.
You are amazing. That is legendary. Was the response okay? Was it positive?
Yeah, he was confused. And I
Yeah.
think his wife was too. She came
Yeah.
out of the house and was like, "Who is this?"
You're like, here's my card. That's
Oh,
seriously the best thing I ever heard. I love that. Oh my God, that's so fun.
that, anyway.
Well, you're the best. Thank you so much. I will make sure to include obviously all your information. We'll share if you could follow. It's Whole Fit Health.
Yes,
Right?
whole fit health.
Whole Fit Health. Follow Kyler. See how you can work with her. Just send her a DM or check the link in her bio. And thank you so much.
Yay! Thank you so much. This was so fun.
Hi.